Good morning and welcome to the Board of Commissioners zoning meeting for October 18th, 2016. We're glad you're with us this morning. We begin our day with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. The invocation this morning will be presented by Reverend Richard Burdick from Unity North Atlanta Church on Sandy Plains Road. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Officer Duncan. Where is he? Oh, there you are. For those who wish to do so, please rise for the invocation and for the pledge.
Good morning, everyone. I invite you to please bow your heads, close your outer eyes as we open our inner eyes. And we come to the highest and deepest awareness that the presence of God was already here when we came in the room. There's nothing to invoke. For everywhere we behold the face of God, in the endeavors that are before us today, in the relationships that we encounter today, we know that that presence and that power of love is present. It is there. It is now. We claim this truth. We allow our mind and our heart and our souls to dwell upon this truth and know that this day is God ordained, God blessed, God manifested. And so our affairs are done with ease and with grace, knowing that we have access to the wisdom that we need, the strength that we need to accomplish that which is ours to do. In this consciousness, all things are working together for the highest and the best. And we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, as our infinite source. Thank you, God, as that power and that presence that guides us through our day. For these truths and so much more, we say thank you, God. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now call our meeting to order. John, at your pleasure, if you would move through an overview of how our day is going to unwind.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, the applicant is asked to stand and signify that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call for any opposition to signify that they are here also, so that they can be counted for the official record. After the counting of the opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side gets 10 minutes to state their case and concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time. So tell the board all your information within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on an issue, you might want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more speakers to come back to the front for additional information or questions. After that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. There is one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. That's rezoning case Z89, Trayton Homes LLC. That case has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z18, Pope and Land Enterprises Incorporated. That case was continued by staff until the November hearing, so Z18 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z68, Cal Atlantic Group Incorporated. That case was continued by the staff until the November 15th, 2016 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so Z68 would not be heard today. Rezoning case Z80, First Center Incorporated. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 1st, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z80 would not be heard today. Rezoning case Z81, John Okubu. That case was continued by the staff into the November 15th, 2016 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so Z81 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z84, James C. Lane Jr. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 1st, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z84 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z85, Paradise Group LLC. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 1st, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z85 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z86, Winsong Properties LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the November 1st, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z86 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z91, Pollock Shores Development LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the November 1st, 2016 zoning hearing, so Z91 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z93, Kaplan Morgan Vinings Development LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6th, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z93 will not be heard today. LUP 25, Willie Abernathy. That case was continued by staff until the November 1st, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so LUP 25 will not be heard today. And other business item number 60, Faraz Ali. That case was continued by the staff until the November 15th, 2016 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so other business 60 will not be heard today. Additionally, Mr. Chairman and Board, there are two cases on today's printed agenda in which the applicant is seeking a continuance. Is the applicant here for Z75 Winsong Properties LLC?
Parks off on behalf of Winsong, and the neighbors have asked for a continuance in this case, and we've agreed to request a continuance to next month.
Commissioner Weatherford?
Move we continue Z75 for 30 days.
Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries
Oh, whoops.
5-0. Thank you.
Additionally, Mr. Chairman, the applicant for other business item number 63, Meritage Homes of Georgia Incorporated, is requesting this case be continued until your November date also.
Commissioner Cupid?
So moved.
Second.
Call the question. We're having difficulties. Raise your hand, yes, folks. Raise your hand. Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks.
Thank you. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please put it on silent mode or turn volume off. The phones do interfere with the broadcast and presentations when they ring. Additionally, for informational purposes, Georgia law states opponents of zoning matters who, within the last 2 years, immediately prior to, have made campaign contributions totaling $250 or more to a local government official who will consider this zoning matter shall file a disclosure with the local government. Zoning applicants complete the same disclosure as part of the application package. More information about this is available on the table at the rear of the room. Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one request for an early head count. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z88, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Adedoden? Let the record show there are 8 people here in opposition. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Okay, before we do that, Commissioner Burrow has an announcement to make.
Sorry. President. Yes, I would like to announce that I will be making a motion to rescind the action taken at the September 20th zoning hearing for case Z35 at the next available zoning hearing, which is November 15th.
Thank you for that announcement. Can you move on to the consent cases, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for October 18, 2016. Your zoning case Z77, VAC Galleria 75 LLC, request a rezoning from O&I and RRC to RRC for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lot 1014 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Cobb Galleria Parkway, north of Cumberland Boulevard, and on the southwest side of I-75. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the RRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. John Moore dated September 29, 2016, with the following changes. To item number 14, add to the list of prohibited uses, P, commercial car washes, queue, recycling, and collection centers. To item number 17, add to the end, the final decision on the decel lane for this project to be made at plan review. And to item number 19, add to the end, or Riverwood Parkway. Building architecture to be approved by the district commissioner, fire department comments and recommendations, water and sewer division comments and recommendations, stormwater management division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z77?
John, Commissioner Ott has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to change the reference date for the letter. The clerk is in receipt of a letter now dated October 12th, 2016, and items A, B, and C from the previous letter were not included in that letter. So just change number 1 to say letter of agreeable conditions for Mr. John Moore dated October 12th, 2016, on file in the zoning division with the following changes, and keep the changes.
Thank you. Z78.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z78, Vanquish Property Partners, LLC. Request rezoning from R20 and LI to RMA for the purpose of attached residential and land lot 825 of the 17th district. The property is located on the northwesterly side of Manor Road, south of Plant Atkinson Road. Staff recommends approval, or the Planning Commission recommends approval to the RM8 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated August 26, 2016, including the site plan and renderings. To item number 3, add to the end, all units are offered for sale with a maximum of no more than 10% rental at any given time. Oversight and control of the rental units will be the responsibility of the homeowners association. To item number 6, add to the end, and up to 2,400 square feet. Add to the end of, add to item number 25, applicant agrees to inform potential and actual buyers of these units in the nearby industrial businesses. Number 2, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z78?
John, Commissioner Ott has a comment.
I would just like to add to additional number 25 to add, it says with a letter signed at closing and submitted to the zoning division.
Okay, thank you. Rezoning case Z83, Covenant Christian Ministries Incorporated. Request rezoning from GC and R20 to CRC for the purpose of a church and a private school. And land lots 838 and 865 of the 19th district. The property is located on the south side of Powder Springs Road, east of Sanders Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the CRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on August 29, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. For church use and private school use only, hours of operation to be from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. only. Architectural style to be in general conformity to the elevations provided, with the district commissioner approving the final elevations. Reduce the required 35-foot landscape screening buffer to 20 feet adjacent to residential property lines. For that northeast portion of the property, approximately 85 feet in length, abutting 2929 Powder Springs Road and 3766 Cedar Drive. Also provide a 20-foot landscape buffer or screen, a 20-foot landscape screen buffer along the eastern property line. Landscape plan to be reviewed by the county arborist with final approval by the district commissioner. Fire department comments and recommendations. Water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Stormwater management division comments and recommendations. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z83? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z87, PE Georgia LLC, request rezoning from NRC with stipulations to NRC with stipulations for the purpose of medical offices in land lot 216 of the 20th district. The property is located on the west side of Kennesaw Due West Road and on the northeasterly side of Stylesboro Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to NRC with stipulations, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on September 1st, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated September 1st, 2016. All variances listed in this analysis. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z87? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z90, Paces Ferry Partners 1 LLC. Request rezoning from LRO to RM8 for the purpose of residential townhomes. Land lot 952 of the 17th District. Property is located on the northwesterly side of Paces Mill Road, easterly of Paces Ferry Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the RM8 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. John Moore, dated September 27, 2016, including a site plan with the following modifications. To item number 5, add to the end, garages will be used for vehicle parking only. Item number 16, revised to read fully sided and irrigated. Item number 21, revised to read all construction, delivery, and employee. 6 townhome units, site plan specific. Rendering submitted today at today's hearing, which was the Planning Commission hearing on October 4th, 2016. Zoning comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Fire Department comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z90? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z92, Core 5 Industrial Partners LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, request rezoning from R20 to LI for the purpose of office warehouse in land lots 609, 610, 683, 684 of the 18th District. Property is located on the south side of Hartman Road and on the south side of Factory Shawls Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the LI zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on August 4th, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Landscape plan to be approved by the county arborist and the district commissioner. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z92? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into land use permits on the consent agenda. LUP 23, Michael Wilga, request a land use permit for the purpose to grow produce to sell in land lot 152 of the 16th District. Property is located on the west side of Lakeside Hills Way, northwest of Hawkins Store Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 12 months, subject to no employees, no signs, variances as listed in zoning comments, 1 customer coming to the house per month, 2 commercial deliveries per month, Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 23? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 24, Deborah S. McGuire, requesting a land use permit for the purpose of poultry, which is 4 hens on less than 2 acres, in land lots 1191 and 1258 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Lakeshore Drive, west of Blackland Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 12 months, subject to a maximum of 4 hens, no roosters, variances as listed in the zoning comments, and Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 24? There was 1 person opposed, Mr. Chairman, so we'll pull that off consent and hear that one.
Thank you.
LUP 26, Garfield McCook, request a land use permit for the purpose of a group home for up to 10 residents in land lot 222 of the 20th District. The property is located on the south side of Stylesboro Road, west of Allatoona Lane. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to a maximum of 10 residents. Maintain turn-around capabilities of driveway so vehicles can exit the property frontwards. No exterior signs. Maintain all state and county required permits. Maintain lot size of the lot as it currently exists. Fire Department comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 26? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 28, Open Arms Group Home, request a land use permit for the purpose of a group home for up to 6 residents in land lot 1272 of the 19th district. Property is located on the west side of Lindsay Drive, north of Jamestown Court. Planning Commission recommends approval for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. Allowed for DFACS kids only, and Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP 28? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into special land use permits on the consent agenda. SLEP 13, Johnson Development Associates Incorporated, requests a special land use permit for the purpose of a climate-controlled self-service storage facility in land lot 763 of the 17th district. The property is located on the west side of Atlanta Road, south of Brownwood Lane, and on the east side of I-285. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on July 7, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Parks F. Huff dated August 29, 2016, and September 1st, 2016. Architectural elevations to be approved by the district commissioner prior to issuance of building permits. Landscape plan to be reviewed by the county arborist and approved by the district commissioner prior to the land disturbance permits. Fire department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLEP 13?
John, Commissioner Ott has a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to advise the board that the applicant submitted a new elevation, the only difference being the addition of gooseneck lighting instead of the sign being lit. And the clerk has a copy.
Thank you, sir.
SLEP 14, Covenant Christian Ministries Incorporated, requests a special land use permit for the purpose of a private school in land lots 838 and 865 of the 19th district. Property is located on the south side of Powder Springs Road, east of Sanders Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the site plan received by the zoning division on August 29, 2016, with the district commissioner approved minor modifications. Architectural elevations to be approved by the district commissioner prior to issuance of building permits. Waiver of minimum acreage requirement from 8 acres to 6 acres. Hours of operation to be from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. only. Reduce required 35-foot landscape screening buffer to 20 feet adjacent to the residential property lines for that northeast portion of the property, approximately 85 feet in length, abutting 2929 Powder Springs Road and 3766 Cedar Drive. Also provide a 20-foot landscape screen buffer along the eastern property line. Landscape plan to be reviewed by the county arborist and approved by the district commissioner prior to land disturbance for code required landscape enhancement strip along the frontage. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLEP 14? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving on to other business cases on consent agenda. Other business item number 53 is to consider a site plan stipulation amendment for Graco Partners LLC regarding rezoning application Z8 of 2012. The property is located at the southeast intersection of Cumberland Boulevard and Stillhouse Lane in land lot 949 of the 17th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to amended Exhibit B with attachments received by the zoning division on October 10, 2016, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 53? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 61 is to consider a stipulation amendment and site plan amendment for Nicole Kelly regarding rezoning application Z67 of 2013 for property located at the northwest intersection of Church Road and North Church Lane, land lot 824 of the 17th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed site plan contained in the other business packet with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Applicant to permit the outdoor stage and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 61? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 62 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Charter Senior Living of Marietta LLC regarding rezoning application Z91 of 1996 for property located on the east side of LaCroix Drive, east of Roswell Road, land lot 1030 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. District Commissioner to approve the final sign design, allowance of sign setback variance to 22 feet from the center line of the road, and Cobb DOT comments. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 62?
John, I need the record to reflect that I need to abstain from this item as my father is a resident of this facility.
Okay. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 64 is to consider granting a special exception for a reduction of public road frontage as recommended by the Board of Zoning Appeals from their September 14, 2016 variance hearing regarding variance application V116 Alvin G. Rains. Staff recommends approval, subject to the Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for V116 of 2016. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 64? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 65 is to consider granting a special exception for a reduction of public road frontage and lot size as recommended by the Board of Zoning Appeals from their September 14, 2016 variance hearing regarding variance application V126 Angela Melanie Khan Hatters. Staff recommends approval, subject to the Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for V126 of 2016. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 65? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 66 is to consider granting a special exception for a reduction of public road frontage and lot size as recommended by the Board of Zoning Appeals from their September 14, 2016 variance hearing regarding variance application V127 Ryan Monette. Staff recommends approval, subject to the Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for V127 of 2016. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 66? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And finally, other business item number 67 is to consider a house moving application, which is HM1-16 for MJ Loudermilk regarding a house to be moved to 4637 Backwoods Court and land lot 133 of the 16th District. The house is currently located at 481 Piedmont Road in land lot 586 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Cobb County Inspections Department House Moving Report dated September 13, 2016. A letter from Mr. Mike Loudermilk dated September 8, 2016. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 67? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman of the Board.
Thank you. Without further comment, I'll bring forward a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised. Is there a second? Any comments? Call the question. Thank you. First item, please.
Okay. All those folks that are on consent agenda, you're free to leave, except for the person for LEP 24, Deborah McGuire. You're going to have a hearing later on today, so please stay. First case, rezoning case Z47, Pebblebrook Development LLC. Request a rezoning from R20 and R80 to R15 for the purpose of a residential neighborhood in land lots 29, 30, 45, 46, and 47 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Old Dallas Road, east of Villarica Way, and on the north end of Hickory Stake Lane. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z47? Please raise your hands. Let the record show we have two people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
It's your pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you and also to members of the Board of Commissioners. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams, and I represent, in connection with this application for rezoning, Pebblebrook Development LLC. I have with me today members of Pebblebrook, one of whom is is Larry Thompson, who you are probably familiar with, who's developed over 10,000 lots during his career within Cobb County. Have with him also his partner, Mr. Mitch Nimey, and Josh Thompson as well. So the four of us can respond to any questions at the appropriate time. This is a case that was unanimously recommended by your planning commission 2 weeks ago. And the first time we appeared before the planning commission back in August, we had 32 people in opposition to this application. We knew we had our work cut out for us. And so we have, for the past 60 days, and actually the 60 days before that, done an inordinate amount of work in coalescing the three subdivisions that surround us. So at this time, I'd like to thank very sincerely and very appreciatively, and this is something my clients join in, Knob Ridge subdivision is to our west, Cheatham Springs subdivision is to our south, and Winthrop Manor subdivision that is to our east. And also the individuals in connection with that, many of whom the leadership of those subdivisions and HOAs are here today, very interested in the outcome of this, to see come to fruition the time that they've expended at this. The property at issue is shown here on your monitors. This is a 120.56 acre tract of land, as you can see, located south of Old Dallas Road. A majority of the property, probably about 75% of it, is already zoned in the R20 classification, with the balance on the eastern side zoned R80. The future land use map for the county, however, has the entirety of the property in an area that's denominated for densities up to 2.5 units per acre. So the 198 lots that we propose, we are below 2 units per acre. So we're at the mid-range of future land use map representations in terms of the utilization of this property. And I might also add, if you look at your zoning map, you can see we're surrounded on all but one small side by properties that are already zoned R20, which is the classification which we seek. What we seek is a rezoning for the purposes of the construction and development of 198 single-family detached, custom quality built residential homes. These will not be spec homes for the most part. These will be custom homes that will be built with a group of builders that Mr. Thompson and his partners work with almost universally. We were able to look at the property from a drone perspective. This is incredible technology and something that you're going to be seeing in the future. And as that's being queued up, this is the preserve at Ellis Lake is going to be the name of it. That's Ellis Lake that you're looking at now. And as the zone progresses through, this is going down Old Dallas Road, heading in a easterly direction. The subject property is on your right or south as you go down Old Dallas Road. The first lake you see there to your right, this is Ellis Lake. It's a beautiful lake, the dam of which is failing. We'll be able to fix that. It'll be an amenity for us. Also, it contains substantial part of our detention. If you look at the two lakes, one of them is Sagebrush Lake, the other one is the Ellis Lake that I was talking about. This gives you an aerial view of the property in relation to surrounding properties, and then again a view of Ellis Lake looking toward the west towards the dam of which is failing. We'll have to fix that. The interesting part of this is where it's situated in juxtaposition to probably the busiest, ARC at least predicted as the busiest intersection over 15 years ago, and that's the intersection of Barrett Parkway and Dallas Highway you see there with the Home Depot, easily recognizable, and then the other shopping centers. Just to give you some ideas how the interior of Pebblebrook's developments look, they take inordinate design efforts with respect to each cul-de-sac. And if you look at the site plan, you see each cul-de-sac is oversized. It can accommodate school buses, fire and public safety equipment, and of course automobiles. But it's amazing how many people actually utilize these enhanced cul-de-sacs for their enjoyment. And it's of course a part of the open space maintained in perpetuity by the HOA with benches for reading, relaxation. And it's just a neat feature and kind of gives you an understanding of the type of development that Pebblebrook and its partners are used to. This is a beautiful piece of property, and the reason Mr. Thompson and his partners were chosen is because Mrs. Ellis and now her estate picked them because there's many, I call them merchant or production developers that will come in, mass grade, clear cut a piece of property, and that's fine for their purposes to achieve the density they need. In this instance, Mr. Thompson and his partners will be taking the ridge lines, as you can see by the topo enhanced site plan you're looking at, and on those ridge lines, the road network will be placed on the ridge lines, with the draws being where the houses are positioned, the trees are saved, and these will all have houses with most of which will have full basements, daylighted basements. So it's an amazing piece of property, but instead of working against the topo or instead of obliterating the topo and the lakes and other natural features thereon, they're working with it in a fashion that saves these natural resources. We've had 7 different site plans. We've had 6 different stipulation letters. This has been pending 6 months. This is not a testament to my fortitude or to our changing our mind. It's a testament to the elaborate negotiations that have taken place with the 3 subdivisions, which I've mentioned in the agreements that we have reached with each and every one of them, most particularly focusing on the buffers that you see between the properties. The property will be built out, if it is zoned, within a 4 to 5 year period in pods, taking it down in the most logical fashion and in the least intrusive fashion that will be possible. Of course, depending on market absorption, this could be faster. It could be a little slower, but we anticipate a 4 to 5 year build out. If I can have the pointer and a microphone, I'll go around the perimeter of the property, and I can tell already I'm going to be running out of time, Mr. Chairman, so I'm going to ask for a couple of extra minutes. This is that
take your
important
time.
to the residents that are out here and also my clients. If you look toward the eastern side of the property, this is Winthrop subdivision, very fine homes, most of which exceed $1 million here. There's a Georgia power easement that runs along this eastern property line here that can't be encroached upon or utilized. There's a 60-foot setback in Winthrop Manor for a total of 160 feet. They wanted us to keep some of the trees, or the trees, it's a heavily wooded property, on our property. So we've done that in the form of a 30-foot natural maintained buffer that'll be subject to a perpetual and exclusive easement in favor of the mandatory HOA. Coming around to the southern part of the property, very similarly situated, but this will be a 50-foot natural maintained buffer utilizing the heavily wooded condition that is here. And you'll notice here, we have lined up at Cheatham Springs' behest the lots against their lots, lot per lot. Going back around to the western side of the property, this is Knob Ridge subdivision that sits up here on a hill. This is Noses Creek that traverses in this fashion. Of course, a huge drainage basin comes in here. It's filtered through Sagebrush Lake, ultimately Ellis Lake, and then into Noses Creek. But here what we've done, we originally had a clubhouse and a swimming pool here. This is an all-sports court that is here. This is a tennis court or an all-sports tennis/basketball court here. We have moved that over as close as we can to the tennis courts in order to provide this 120-foot natural maintained buffer up against the lots in Knob Ridge. And as you can see, this is the floodplain line here. So the lots in Knob Ridge are in the flood-prone, flood area, and they do get flooded down here, as was the plan when their houses, which are way on top of the hill, would be protected. We have moved the swimming pool and the clubhouse to this side of the property. Of course, it can be accessed interiorly through the road network that is here in that fashion. Thank you, Dan. The language that we have worked out with each of the 3 subdivisions is identical, but adjusted to each subdivision. And what it affords, which is something much different than the buffers that you've seen in other situations, it affords not only an undisturbed or natural maintained buffer, but that existence of that will be denominated by signs 3 feet in height on each lot on the east, west, and south of the property. There'll be recitals in the deed, not only to the original purchaser of the property, but subsequent purchaser of the property. They'll be contained within the conditions and restrictions in the HOA documents. And then to go even one step further, there is no way, because of the stipulations and the way we position them, that these buffers can be changed in any way, either by a commission minor amendment, administratively, or by another business application. So if someone wants to get into this buffer or change it, whether it be a property owner or an HOA, they would have to come back through a full zoning process, subject to the language that we've worked out. And the language we've worked out is probably the most comprehensive language of any buffer. No, it's not probably, it is the most comprehensive language worked out with any buffers that I've dealt with in the 37 years I've been doing this. And I'll have to give particular thanks to Veronica and George Carey, who are attorneys that live in Cheatham Springs, with respect to their input on the language of the buffers, but also give credit to Jerry Reagan in Winthrop Manor, who headed up that group, and also to Jennifer Fisher in Knob Ridge, who headed up that group, and fly-spec'd everything that came out of my office and from my client to them. I need for you to know this is highly amenitized. The mandatory HOA will take care of the landscaping, the fencing, the buffers, the irrigation, the lighting, the mail kiosks, all the common areas that you see as well. We've described in the stipulation letter the mundane things like signage and things of that nature. And the landscape plan, it will submit and formulate a landscape oversight committee consisting of representatives of those 3 subdivisions. The time is more than run out. I would just like to thank, well, first of all, I'd like to thank my client. He's the most preeminent, or they are the most preeminent developer in Cobb County in terms of residential development. They have taken the charge given to them by Mrs. Ellis to develop this property in a responsible manner. You're not going to see one developed like this very often. And that's not a dig at production developers. We represent them, but there's several different ways to approach a piece of property. And Mr. Thompson and his partners have not only approached it the correct way, they've approached it really the only way that this property begs to be developed. Their stipulations regarding transportation and other things, the letter and my presentation is 37 pages long, but I don't want to go too far overboard and just position myself and my clients to respond to any questions, Mr. Chairman, that you and Commissioner Weatherford may have at the appropriate time. We do respectfully request you follow your staff's and your Planning Commission's recommendation for approval, and realize the fact that at 33 people in opposition, we whittled it down to 1 2 weeks ago, and I understand there are 2 here today. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the extra time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. We'll now hear from the opposition. You'll have 13 minutes to speak. The opposition, please.
Good morning, Mr. Lee, Commissioner, Bob Weatherford, and the rest of the commission. My name is Frederick Chumley, and I live at 2051 Old Dallas Road. I'm here today representing the residents of Old Dallas Road and others throughout West Cobb County who are opposed to the overdevelopment of our area. We are asking that you oppose Z47. My wife and I moved to this rural setting 22 years ago to raise our family of 7 children. Old Dallas Road is known for its historic nature, and it was once a dirt road. During the war between the states, both Confederate and Union soldiers used it and camped in its woods. This property, known to many throughout the West Cobb as the Ellis property, is one of the largest remaining green spaces in Cobb County and was nominated once again and for the 3rd time to be a Cobb County park. It would be a perfect green space to preserve the land for generations to come. And I just want to comment on the beautiful video that we just saw. And what it was missing in the picture was there was no homes there. So add the homes around that lake and the beauty is gone. I built houses for 40 years, renovated homes, especially restored historic properties, and it was very important to save historic properties. The same goes for property and land. Should be preserved as best as possible. This property, it backs up to the Barron property, which is R80 on the west side, adjacent to Noses Creek, and to the Orion Land Group's property on the east side. It's also R80, as well as numerous other smaller properties that are also zoned R80. There are precious few R80 properties remaining in Cobb County, and ours is one of them. Evelyn, if you knew her personally, and Tom, known as T.A. Ellis, they were personal friends of ours. We often met with them in their home, and many times they spoke of their future vision of this property. Miss Ellis loved wildlife and always wanted this property to be a park or a nature preserve and not a subdivision. T.A. also spoke of his desire to turn the property into possibly a golf course. And if Evelyn were here right now, she would tell you how she would never be in favor of this beautiful area of forest being made into homes. She was a true conservationist who loved and valued the land and what it meant to her and her family. Her values and desires for the land are also shared by most of the current landowners on Old Dallas Road. My wife, Melissa, and I took up her calls as she got older and with failing health, as she could not attend the Planning Commission or the BOC meetings. On her behalf, we won approval to deny sewer egress across her property. We stopped the Home Depot from being built on Knob Ridge, and we stopped Orion Land Group from rezoning the eastern part of this property from R80 to 15. So we are asking that you deny Z47 because of the consequences it will have on the environment, the traffic in the area, and the overall quality of life for those of us that surround this property. And as well, those who must travel down Dallas Highway for work or school each day. The water from two streams feed both Sagebrush Lake, which was previously known as Yodd's Lake, and Ellis Lake, both of which flow into Noses Creek. These waterways would be dramatically affected by pollution from runoff, septic, and field lines. In addition, the amount of wildlife on this property that would be displaced will be extensive. Some of our neighbors have lived on Old Dallas Road for 40 to 60 years. My house was originally built by Yod Bolin as a cottage overlooking the lake he built, now known as Sagebrush Lake. I rebuilt the house 23 years ago, and I only have a 50-foot setback from the road. If you approve Z47 and the addition of 198 new homes on this property, traffic will be a nightmare for those of us who live there. It will be a major safety concern. How will we get in and out of our driveways safely? How will school buses navigate this short and very narrow road while keeping our children safe? If you widen the road and take the right-of-way, our property values will be greatly diminished, and there will be a major safety concern. So I got a question for those who live in West Cobb and traveled Whitlock Avenue this morning. How long did it take you to get here? 15 minutes? 30? Well, you're lucky if it's 30, but it's more like 45 just to get to the Marietta Square. Presently, Old Dallas Road is used as a cut-through for nearby subdivisions like Knob Ridge, and especially during rush hours. And anyone who knows West Cobb is aware of the traffic issues we face each day. Just look at the hundreds of comments made on the petition circulating around West Cobb requesting denial of the many rezoning applications. A large percentage of the comments are about the horrible traffic we all must endure every day in our area. The impact of almost 200 homes would cause a backup onto Old Dallas Road, Dallas Highway, John Ward, and Whitlock Avenue, with morning commute times taking 30 minutes or more just to drive 5 miles to the Marietta Square. And now it may take 45 minutes with the additional cars. So I have submitted a petition with approximately 50 signatures, including the majority of the landowners on Old Dallas Road, asking for complete denial of Z47. The applicant's property can still be developed at the current R80 zoning. I'm going to repeat that. The applicant's property can still be developed at the current R80 zoning and have an economic return. With regard to the current R80 zoning on this property, it is considered viable and a marketable property to be developed as such, and it should not be considered a risk to be done so if you reject the applicant's request for change. We ask that you do not allow the Ellis property to be rezoned simply to accommodate the economic interests of the applicants. Their gain will come at our cost and that of our neighborhood, as we now know it. We ask that you consider what will best protect the future of our neighborhood and humbly request that you deny Z47. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other speakers in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Mr. Weatherford, would you lead our conversation, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, if I could, from staff, mainly DOT. Ms. White.
Hello, Ashley White with the DOT.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you tell us DOT comments regarding Old Dallas Road and the effect this property has? I know you looked at this, correct?
Well, our recommendations is to add decel lanes along each of the entrances on Old Dallas Road. As far as this effects on Dallas Highway and nearby intersections, a traffic study was submitted, and it showed that all of the intersections right now are operating at a level of service of B or better, which exceeds our standards. But in the future, we can, after build out of the property, take more traffic counts and see if the intersections level of service change and then revisit it in the future. But right now it's showing that the level of service is at a B or better.
So at the intersections at Dallas and Old Villarica can handle the currently protections, is what you see?
That's what was projected in the traffic study, yes.
Do you see in the foreseeable future any need to widen Old Dallas Road?
In the future, yes. The best thing we can do at this point is take traffic studies after build out the property and revisit it to see if we can widen it, or if the traffic study and traffic counts reflect that Old Dallas Road would need to be widened.
All right, with a 4 to 5 year build out, as the applicant is projecting, that would give us ample time to decide whether or not we need to do something like that.
Right, I believe so.
What is the standard right of way that we have on that road for each property? You know, have an idea?
For Old Dallas Road, we should have 100 feet of right of way.
on both sides? Or,
Well, 50 feet from the center line on each side,
okay,
so 100 feet total,
yeah, that's what I'm just trying.
right?
Yeah. So I assume if we did that, if Mr. Chumley's concerns, he's only got a 50-foot setback now, that would take his whole yard if we were to do something on that side, correct?
It would, yes. Yeah, right now I think they show 50 feet of right-of-way on Old Dallas.
So we would take things like that into consideration if we were to widen it so that it could be possibly on the other side or use it that way.
Right, or we would have to acquire some right-of-way to see if we can, work with them.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else? Any questions? And stormwater, Dave, can I ask you a couple questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I saw you over there looking the wrong way.
Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management Division.
Ms. Braden, I assume this property is served by sewer, correct, or will be served by sewer, is that correct?
Yes, it will be, is and will be, yeah. There's a sewer trunk that runs along the stream, right? So there won't be any septic fields or septic lines.
Okay, so that particular issue is mute, and that this will be served by sewer.
No, yeah, yes, sir.
And we've looked at stormwater issues in the two lakes, and the applicant is going to repair the dam, and
I think one is in worse shape than the other one, but they will both be brought up to the current county standards with the freeboard requirement and the spillway capacity, both principal and emergency spillways.
do you recall what class these dams are?
These are not classified by the state. They're not regulated by Georgia Safe Dams.
Okay. And you've looked at stormwater drainage in the various creeks in these lakes, and we feel
Well,
it's-
preliminary for the zoning hearing, or for the zoning cases, yes, but the engineer will be required to do detailed design and analysis during plan review that we will.
so at plan review, any additional changes or requirements would be necessary, the
That's
applicant would
correct.
have to comply with in order to get.
They have to size all the stormwater lines and the pipes and inlets to get the runoff to the lakes.
But currently, as it sits, it meets what we need, correct?
Believe so, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
There was a question provided by the opposition with respect to the integrity of the lake, concerned about silt or perhaps runoff into the lake. Can you describe what type of analysis that stormwater will do to ensure that runoff from construction, particularly silt, won't be going into the lakes?
Well, that's a function of our erosion sediment control division, but they review the plans during plan review to make sure that they have adequate erosion control measures in place to protect the lakes from the on-site impacts. But not much can be done from upstream in the parks and the cemetery and the existing subdivisions that exist upstream offsite currently. One of the things that we would suggest during plan review is that, because these lakes will be permanent pools maintained by the HOA, is to install what we call forebays at the upper end, so that any sediment in the future that does migrate down, and just natural channels generate sediment on their own without any development. So there will be sediment impacts to the lakes over time. But with the forebay, you have an access to a one point where you can get that sediment without having to go into the major part, the main part of the lake, and do it. So that would be something we would obviously suggest in your plan review, during plan review.
Mr. Sams, it's my understanding that there's an intent during construction to drain these two lakes, remove sedimentation, and repair the dams,
Well, they'll definitely have to drain them somewhat to do the repairs.
do the work, yeah.
If you look at the dams, Mr. Chairman,
Don't
starting with Sagebrush, which is the lake that is the easternmost lake, the dam on that, the efficacy of the dam is in place, but it has sustained an inordinate amount of sedimentation from the right-of-way and road work done on Dallas Highway, from the development of the cemetery that used to be C.W. Matthews' home prior to it becoming a cemetery, and also a failure of the detention facility in Winthrop Manor. So what Mr. Thompson and his staff will do, the dam is fine, but we'll take the siltation that exists out, starting with the deltas of the lake, because Sagebrush Lake gets the preponderance of the silt, and then that's sort of it's not really a water quality device, but it acts as water quality. So by the time it gets to Ellis Lake, there's less sedimentation. In Ellis Lake, we're going to have to do substantial remedial measures to that dam to bring it under the Safe Dams Act requirements, even though it's not, as Mr. Braden is a part of the state. Will both lakes be totally demucked? No, there's not a necessity for that according to our engineers.
Okay. Well, the point I was trying to make is that there's a credible amount of attention and work that's going to be done on those two lakes, not only to address prior impact from other projects, but to prepare it, if you would, for the normal life of this subdivision when it's completed.
It's not only our detention, and a huge basin goes through those lakes. It's not only our detention, it's an amenity. If you look at the positioning of the lots around that, which will also have a walking, jogging trail around both lakes as well.
Thank you. Commissioner, did that address your, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Burrow. It's
Sorry.
only been 4 years. She'll get it next year.
Oh, goodness. Commissioner Weatherford's rubbing off on me with the buttons, wrong buttons.
I'm getting better.
Was a traffic study done as far as a traffic signal warranted, or?
Y'all have a requirement that any time that you exceed a 75 home threshold, traffic studies are required at certain levels. The complexities of those traffic studies increase. So we did the ultimate traffic study that's required by Cobb County, and we looked at what we're supposed to, that is the counts, the traffic generated AM, PM peak hours. We looked at the various intersections to be affected, which is Old Dallas Road with Dallas Highway, Old Dallas Road with Villa-Rica Way, and then Villa-Rica Way's intersection with Dallas Highway. They all, as Ms. White said, are operating at level of service B, which is an incredible level of service considered the historical or urban knowledge of the road network out there. Under a no-bill situation, they stay B. Under a bill situation, they stay B. And I'll tell you one other thing we've agreed to do. It's not a stipulation, but those people here that are representing these three subdivisions, there appears to be sufficient right-of-way on Villa-Rica Way to without even adding right-of-way, to include dedicated turning lanes so that those people that are wanting to turn don't have to wait behind those people that happen to be going straight across Villa-Rica Way. So there's things that we're doing outside the traffic study. A long answer to your question is the traffic study didn't talk about signalization at any point, because Old Dallas Road goes really nowhere except it attaches Dallas Highway with Villa-Rica Way. So neither one of those intersections would be warranted, if that's your question.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
Thank you. As Mr. Sam said and is mentioned, that this has been a long process to work through that in many site plans, and evidenced by the multiple stipulation letters that have been revised since July and August. So I would like to make a motion then to approve Z47 from R20 and R80 to conditional R20 and R80, subject to the stipulation letter from Sam Larkin, Huffin Valley, dated 10/11, and is amended slightly in a letter on 10/14, with all staff comments not otherwise in conflict, and above referenced stipulation letters. And any and all stipulation revisions must be approved by a district commissioner or staff designee, including all P&Z comments and recommendations, I believe, have been included in that letter as well. So,
Thank you. I'll make a second to that motion. Is there any comments, Commissioner Ott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although the product that Mr. Thompson showed in the video is exceptional quality, and I have problems with the density, particularly when I look at the sheet in our zoning analysis book from the school district. All three of these schools are way over capacity. Also, I think this property was nominated again, and next week this board's going to find out what the recommendation of the Citizens Committee is. And I think it's, as a minimum, this should be held 30 days to find out what their recommendations are, because if this property is going to be recommended to be bought, the last thing we want to be doing is rezoning it. So I can't support it today.
Thank you, Mr. Ott. Any other comments? Any other comments? Call a question. Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Ott in opposition. Thank you. That takes us to Z72.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z72, Akeem Akambi, request rezoning from GC and NS to CRC for the purpose of truck rental in land lot 1300 of the 19th district and land lot 33 of the 18th district. The property is located on the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway and on the north side of South Gordon Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z72. Let the record show there's one person opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Okay, will the applicant please come forward and present your case?
Good morning, Commission.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Akeem Akambi.
I'm sorry, in the microphone, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it here on the September 20th hearing. I was stuck in somewhere out of state. The application for the C72 for the zoning of our location for the purpose of truck rental. Yeah, okay. We applied for this location in order for us to be able to give a detailed service of your truck rental for our neighbors within our area. And we've get some good review from our rental service, and everybody that actually rented the truck with us have been given a good reviews. We've requested for this just because for the neighborhood to be able to get a service that was requested and needed for them. Like I said when we came for the hearings of the zoning commissioner, we are not changing anything with regard to how the location is being right now. It's just a limited truck rental area that will accommodate for 3 or 4 trucks at a time. It's not going to be a congested area that is going to be that much of a truck that we're going to be putting on that location. And we have the recommendation of the zoning committee that say that we need to put some things in place that we're going to be working on, and that's what we're going to be working on. We are given about 120 days in order to do to make the provision for that.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
I think we wanted to talk about some other stuff.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys? My name is David Schleier. I'm the area field manager for the location on Veteran Memorial Highway. I had some packets that I created I would love to share with you guys if that's okay. I didn't know how many to bring, so I only made 4.
You can pass those to the clerk.
Sure. Here's the 4th one. The packets I had created just suggest the reason why U-Haul's in the community and why we're trying to expand and with local businesses such as Akeem's shipping point business. So I just made basis on it. So the first cover that's on it suggests the impact to the environment that U-Haul provides, that by having more trucks, not so much more trucks, but more locations for our customers to be able to have access to our trucks actually reduces the carbon imprint in the environment. So a customer being able to pick one up at Hakeem's location and being able to drive it maybe 10 miles in the area instead of having to go to full and industrial around the corner suggests that it makes his location a prime location near the residential area. So, and then on the second page, I just put out some of the customer reviews that Akeem has from his location. So pretty much Akeem has customers that will rent from his location, and then they provide unbiased, unedited reviews through U-Haul, just suggesting their experience with either U-Haul directly, with maybe the billing process, or just Akeem directly with his business and how they conduct themselves. So there's about 25 reviews there I gave you. And then the third page just suggests, the gross retail of it to show that there is a demand for it, and that people are going in there and they do enjoy their rental experience. So I would just really ask us to consider that, Akeem's not loading up his parking lot with 100 trucks or 30 trailers. We're taking into mind that we have lot limits set for his location, so he won't be overran in the middle of the night with several drop-offs and stuff. So, but that's just the basis of it. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cupid, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. You can have a seat, gentlemen. Is there any
Thank you.
opposition?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sonia Wheatley, and I'm with the Mableton Improvement Coalition. Typically, the Mableton Improvement Coalition stays inside the zip code 30126. This is literally across the street, which is the only reason that the board decided to weigh in on this particular case. We certainly wish the business owner the very best. When we looked at this, with it being across the street, the concern is really about intensifying the use of the property. As you're aware, they're asking for CRC, and it is an ENAC, and neighborhood retail would be more applicable or more appropriate for the future land use map. So we want to stay within that. Our concern is not that it's a bad use per se, but certainly if we change the category, we open up the door down the road for all kinds of businesses that may not be appropriate inside the future land use planning. I will say that the Planning Commission made note of the problem of the property itself being kind of a strange rectangle. I think DOT had recommendations regarding safety. The Planning Commission suggested that those be implemented upon redevelopment so as to not have any extreme burden on the current user. The only other additional thing I did want to point out is that, looking at code enforcement, it appears that the business owner has not had a business license for more than a year and a half, and that he has been notified by code enforcement twice and is still operating. So we would certainly ask for timeframes, whatever your final decision is, that things be brought back into line. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other folks here to speak in opposition to Z72? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing is closed. Commissioner Cupid?
Thank you, Chairman. I thank the applicant for coming out here today and for his operation of his business and for the level of service that you've provided that do garner positive reviews. I did have opportunity to go to the site on a couple of occasions, and we'll support the recommendations of both staff and the Planning Commission to reduce the zoning or delete the zoning to neighborhood retail commercial, which would facilitate your ongoing business inside the building, but would not facilitate U-Haul rental. The following reasons were provided by staff. That the rezoning proposal will have an adverse effect on the usability of adjacent or nearby property, and that you will need to make sure large trucks would be parked at the site will not interfere with the nearby intersection. If you look at the actual property, even looking at the picture here today, parking is relatively limited on this site, even on the day that I visited. It was very hard to fathom how additional parking spaces would be provided for the ongoing business, let alone to be able to provide U-Haul rental in a way that would provide adequate parking for those utilizing the service. Also, if you look at staff recommendations under transportation, it even recommended reducing the number of parking spaces so that they would not encroach upon the right-of-way, which will limit the amount of current parking spaces that you have. In light of those considerations, it makes it very difficult to consider how additional parking would be provided for a U-Haul truck rental. Staff further provides that there are existing and changing conditions which affect the use and development of the property, which gives supporting grounds for deleting the applicant's rezoning proposal to NRC, and that for the type of use that's being requested will be more appropriate for a community activity center or a regional activity center. However, this property is under neighborhood activity center. Therefore, staff provided that deleting the zoning to NRC will allow the applicant opportunity to have additional uses that are consistent with additional nearby uses, and I agree with that. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we support the planning recommendation to delete the NRC zoning category, subject to planning commission comments and recommendations.
Before you go further, you're going to
Sure.
delete it to NRC,
Yeah, delete
correct?
it to NRC, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, to delete the property to the NRC zoning category, subject to planning commission comments and recommendations, staff comments, recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Second. Second, any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Z75 with continued, that takes us to Z82.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case Z82, Golden Anchor Boat Storage LLC, request a rezoning from R20, R30, and GC to LI for the purpose of covered and uncovered secured parking for recreational vehicles and boats in land lot 40 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Ackworth Dallas Road, north of Dallas Ackworth Highway. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z82? Please keep your hands raised. Let the record show there are 5 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Your pleasure, Mr. Rosen.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Adam Rosen with the law firm Sams, Larkin, Huff and Valley here this morning on behalf of your applicant Z82 and Golden Anchor Boat Storage. I don't have drone footage for us this morning, which I think my client's starting to question me more now. We do have a presentation for you shortly. Property's located on the west side of Ackworth Dallas Road, just north of its intersection with Dallas Ackworth Highway, Highway 92. South of its intersection with Cedar Crest Road. Application is proposed for a limited storage facility limited to recreational vehicles and boats. You can see from this aerial the property is directly across Ackworth Dallas Road and with a view of the flea market that everyone knows along Highway 41. Properties within a neighborhood activity center. You can see the property at the southern portion of this neighborhood activity center, but included within that activity center and encapsulated to the south. And you can see as the neighborhood activity center does contemplate and propose this continuation of development along 41 for our property and continuing along 41 north along and into Bartow County. This is also reflected in the current zoning of our property as well as the properties surrounding the subject property. Our property, of course, zoned general commercial R20 and R30 with properties across Ackworth Dallas Road. General commercial, we can see a little bit of to the north, some heavy industrial, and then across the street, other commercially zoned properties. A little bit of history for our property, the GC piece in the middle was rezoned in 1989 for purposes of a warehouse. At the time, of course, was appropriate for a GC category. At this time, would have been more appropriate for an LI category, but of course was never developed in that manner and remains undeveloped other than the current residential structure on the property. A little bit more orientation to the north at the intersection with Cedar Crest Road. Although we are undeveloped immediately surrounding the property, you quickly get into commercialization of this area at its intersection with Cedar Crest, which is what you're seeing here with the Publix, the Mellow Mushroom, the McDonald's, so a larger intersection just down the street from the property. The subject property, this is the current, what was a former residential structure. This is not to say anything poorly about the Tumlin family who is here today and the owners of this property. This is simply the property that their parents and grandparents grew up in and lived in and has owned for under 100 years, just under 100 years, but is unfortunately unable to maintain the property or unable to develop the property themselves and have been attempting to sell this property for some time now, but of course have seen the difficulties of development for this area mainly because of its lack of sewer access. This is also what's allowed the applicant to come in and see a vision and an opportunity for this property to bring some vitalization to this area in line with the vision of the Tumlin family. Principles of the applicant have been around Marietta and Cobb County for generations, mostly limited to Cobb County and development and building and high-end residential and other commercial developments. Taking this experience into what the vision is before you today, this is a request for covered and gated facility strictly limited to boats and recreational vehicles. The plan that you see before you now is not the original plan. Originally, the plan was a 20-foot buffer landscaped by the applicant. After 2 cycles with the Planning Commission, working closely with those members, reworked the plan to meet the full 50-foot required buffer of the code. We'll leave that buffer undisturbed. This also reduced the overall footprint of the project. We're losing just under 75 storage spaces by doing that, but also created, in addition to the 50-foot buffer, separation from any actual storage facility, no matter what the development is in the future, some significant separation between the two. So although area is undeveloped now, we've ensured that the separation between this use and any uses in the future will be significant. You can see how the plan will fit into what's the current landscaping of the property now. Again, undeveloped since really its existence. When the applicant enters into development, of course, will enter into a tree-safe plan, will not disturb the buffer unless necessary for utilities or other purposes, and will install a landscape berm along the frontage of Ackworth Dallas Road. So this will, in totality, will certainly hide the use, but what you will actually see is aesthetically pleasing nonetheless, showing the elevations of the project here. What you'll see from Ackworth Dallas Road is a brick structure with terracotta red style roof, so a good balance between fitting into the residential character, but also a commercial nature as well. You won't see any of the products stored on this site. You'll look at the side of a well-done, professionally maintained facade. Stipulation letter, of course, covers conditions that the applicant has agreed to for this proposal. Zoning will be limited to this use only, specifically eliminating all other light industrial uses. Of course, we'll have the mature landscaping throughout the 50-foot buffer, explicitly prohibiting daily users such as contractors for daily work use. So all of the customers of the property will be long-term, again, with the landscape berm along the frontage of the road, and of course requesting gravel parking for the facility, which will reduce the overall impact and reduce the overall impervious surface. The operations will be very limited to 2 employees. Those employees will be there to provide complimentary parking services for the customers. Those that are not comfortable parking their boat or recreational vehicle, which most may not be, especially backing into a parking space, those employees will be there to provide that service. Hours limited, recognizing what the peak and off seasons will be. Of course, the off season will be a significant portion of the year when boats are winterized and mostly maintained as a quiet parking lot. So the hours will reflect that and will be more limited during those times. Going through this process, we've seen that not only did the applicant know this, but as we kind of researched and looked at what facilities are in the area and studied that versus other lakes, specifically Lake Lanier, of course, in the metro Atlanta area as well. You see a population here of storage facilities near the lake, and not all of these are recreational vehicle and boat storage facilities. So we're talking about under 5 other facilities to service the needs of an area that really has a lot of amenities with the lake, with Red Top Mountain. Certainly something that we can see a need for in this area. If you look at Lake Lanier, you'll see 10 to 20 of these red dots surrounding the lake in similar facilities. And this is actually somewhat of where the applicant looked to for the idea of what's really unique in this area, which is covered, restricted, and gated. Covered is not something that's seen anywhere else in this area, and certainly something that you talk to owners, that's what they want to have for the protection of their product. Showing you here a little bit closer aerial of the property. The underlying struggle of this case has been the development in the future for this area, which of course has gone through many phases of ideas and proposals, none of which have really been able to gain any traction or fruition based on the lack of sewer in the area. Showing you a couple of the applications that were withdrawn simply because of that fact. So the applicant's coming forward at this point for the first time with a proposal that doesn't require sewer, that will bring some vitalization to this area, to this property, with a use that will fit in no matter what the future may be for this area. There's been some discussion about the capacity of the road, Rackworth Dallas Road. This is 2 pictures put together, but almost shows you exactly the actual width of that access. So it almost looks like it's perfectly constructed for this purpose. And what we figured out is that this is also the access to the rear of the flea market. So already built out for trailer access, for tractor trailer vehicles, for large truck and farm vehicles pulling in cattle and equipment for the flea market through its rear entrance. So anything about the capacity of the road just simply isn't true. And then the other side of Ackworth Dallas Road at Cedar Crest, of course, is a large commercialized intersection as well. So when and if this area develops as everyone hopes, and certainly we do as well, from here along 41 up to Cedar Crest, we believe that not only will this use fit in with any future development in the area, but understanding that we do front along Ackworth Dallas Road, which currently and will always have a view of either the flea market or what may turn into a similar light industrial or use for that property when it's redeveloped. If it's not something that fits in the future, it's limited in infrastructure, gravel parking lot, limited overall construction of the facility itself, limited impact for the area, so it certainly can be part of a redevelopment for the future and provide that vitalization for this area for the time being. So with that, we hope you can see the vision, the methodology of this high-end application to what is usually just a parking lot, usually just a storage facility, but this time actually taking it into something that's well-constructed, well-maintained, and professionally run, and really is a unique application of it that's not seen anywhere around this area. We hope that this will finally start some development, bring some vitalization to the area. Again, the applicant is here today with us. The Tumlin family is here today with us as well. If your board has any questions for them, they've obviously lived this for a long time, so certainly can address things more than I may be able to. So with that, we ask that you follow the recommendation of your planning commission and approve Z82. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Opposition, please. You'll have 11 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Gambrell, and I'm president of People Looking After Neighborhoods. I was contacted by residents in the area of the proposed self-storage facility who are opposed to this rezoning application. Mr. Rosen in his presentation stated that they are already a commercialized area of Cobb County. While this is a true statement, what he fails to address is that the infrastructure is also in place and a Cobb County code to handle the volume of traffic generated for Publix, Mellow Mushroom, and McDonald's as mentioned. These buildings are also constructed of brick and architectural features that are in keeping with the surrounding area, unlike the metal-framed structures being proposed for this site. Ackworth Dallas Road is classified as a local road. However, due to the traffic volume on State Route 92, traffic from the flea market is only allowed to turn right onto State Route 92 and then directed to Ackworth Dallas Road to make another right to get back to Cobb Parkway. Traffic has increased significantly with development in this area, but the county has not included any Tier 1 funds for either the 2011 or 2016 SPLOST to address congestion on this road. Bringing large vehicles with trailers attached can cause additional traffic congestion. Mr. Rosen also stated in his presentation that you will not be able to see vehicles stored from the road. However, from the site plan presented at the hearing, the indoor storage will be at the entrance and then the rows of outdoor vehicle storage. Staff noted that the slopes range from 3 to 14% on the site and will require mass grading to obtain a flat, level surface to park vehicles on. How will the natural 50-foot buffer be maintained with mass grading, which will be required to level this site for parking? Also, will the storage facility potentially sit above adjacent neighbors? During Mr. Gunther's comments, he called Tim Davidson up from Cobb County Water. He asked Mr. Davidson when sewer would be available to this location. Mr. Davidson stated sewer is available and that a developer just needs to install, as we have flow and capacity agreements with Paulding County. Mr. Davidson then went on to say that there is no county-initiated project for sewer in this area. After Mr. Davidson answered questions, Mr. Gunther then stated, as if justifying his motion, that it would be 5 to 10 years for sewer to be in this area and that this would be a good fit in the interim. This goes against what Mr. Davidson had stated. Sewer is available and the property can be developed, provided the property owner or developer is willing to incur that cost. The map that Mr. Rosen used showing where existing self-storage facilities were located failed to mention the parkatory storage a half-mile north, which is similar to what Golden Anchor Storage will be, and the newly approved facility less than a half-mile to the south. If the Board of Commissioners votes to approve this application, then hours of operation should be restricted from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday in peak season, and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in off-peak season. Please note, there is no defined peak or off-peak seasons to which these hours will apply. The proposed Golden Anchor boat storage, which will be situated in the center of a designated neighborhood and future NAC, as depicted on and planned for this corridor. Light industrial is not a zoning category that is permissible within the current residential zoning. While the Planning Commission viewed this rezoning as a good use for the owner of the property until sewer comes along, even though sewer is currently available at a cost, how do the rights of the adjacent property owners get protected if they cannot optimize their property as designated by the county land use plan? Qualified county staff in their analysis recommended this application should be denied. As Mr. Rosen said, we ask that you uphold that recommendation and deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers in opposition? Are there any other speakers?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Ken Horton. I'm the owner of Governor's Town Club. To just clarify, one thing that seems to be an issue is that there is sewer in the development. I brought it there. Give you a little history on this area. This is as rural of an area as you could get. I accumulated about 1,000 acres in this area in 1999 and 2000. I developed the Governor's Town Club, which is one of the highest end gated golf course communities in Cobb County. I also developed all the pictures that they just showed you of the commercial property. I developed all of that in a very high class nature. And we were moving forward with this property, which everything that you see in green and not colored in, I own a majority of that property. And we worked with the previous district commissioner for several years, Ms. Gorham, on this. And we did start developing it before the Great Recession hit me. So subsequently, for the last 6-7 years, we haven't been able to do very much, but we are prepared to move forward immediately on rezoning the balance of the property that I have. We have the utilities there to develop it. And what I plan to bring immediately, in fact, prior to January, working with the staff, is all of this area in this area here I own. Okay. All of this area that you see in here, I presently own and/or have developed part of that. And this is what we are going to bring before the county in the early part of the year. The property that surrounds the proposed zoning, I also own that. And everything that you see highlighted in green, we would like to develop that as residential as part of our commercial zoning. So we would have dining, retail, movie theater, and the like. And also one of the things that Ms. Gorham pushed me to do on this site is to do a green space, Marietta Square type green space in the commercial area. So all of the people that are in the residential area could walk to the commercial area and have a green space to use. So as you can see that I've highlighted in red, we think dropping in a boat storage facility in the middle of the residential is not something I think is conducive for allowing us to develop the balance of it. I do agree and believe that they would do a nice job on it. I just don't believe this is what is needed for the area. I don't think it's what the homeowners want for the area, and we are prepared to develop the balance of this property in a very high-class area like we have done across the street presently.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers?
Good morning. My name is Robert Mamarato. I live at 6209 Arnall Court in Governor's Town Club. I represent the Homeowners Association of Governor's Town Club. In September, I wrote a letter on behalf of the Homeowners Association to the Board of Commissioners. I think you have that in your package. If you don't, I've passed another copy of it around to you. And what I would like to do is read part of that letter to the group. Dated September the 7th. According to the planning and zoning documents, the area in question has future land use defined as NAC, Neighborhood Activity Center, as part of Cobb County's comprehensive plan. The existing surrounding area is being developed according to the NAC guidelines. The residents of Governor's Town Club, represented through the Governor's Town Club homeowner associations, are very concerned about the potential of spot zoning allowing for this rezoning request to proceed. We desire for the area to remain consistent with NAC use and its guidelines. Governor's Town Club is a large Cobb County upmarket residential community very near the proposed rezoning property. Furthermore, Governor's Town Club Homeowners Association fully supports the rationale recommended to deny the rezoning by your planning and zoning staff. In addition, Ackworth, Dallas Road,
covered facility. I think that was brought up. The plan may look like part of it is not covered. All of it is, it actually will be covered and will be those structures that you saw on the renderings and elevations. Sewer is available was a comment that was made. Sewer is not currently available to this site. It would have to be brought there, and that's different sewer. And again, I'm not one that's been around to know all of this for a long time, but learned it through this process. Sewer is available and there for a different area of this development, as Mr. Horton pointed out, for his development is a totally different access for sewer than our development. That's why our property and the property west and south of our property has been undeveloped because of the difficulties of sewer for that area, which is separate from the sewer access just to the north, and to the north of the one piece of property that I understand that is owned by Mr. Horton. The property to the south, which actually is owned by Willoughby and Sewell Development, and other properties to the south and west have remained undeveloped because of that reason.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our public comment this time. Mr. Weatherford, would you lead our conversation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When this began, it seemed to be a fairly simple application to put something in an area that has seen nothing for many, 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 many years. And as I delved into it more, it became a little bit more complicated. Several things that were mentioned today that I find somewhat confusing in the fact that sewer is available. I was just having a discussion this week with staff about getting sewer here, and it would take the county doing some sewer districts in order to get it here, unless it comes from the private development that Mr. Horton mentioned in his property. I know some of the developments up and down 41, and I know by even driving by that all of those are completely full. So the argument that you don't need another one, must be erroneous, but it's not my job to determine market conditions and make a decision based on that. I did talk to staff about this area and development, and I know that for 10 or 12 years, talk has been about redeveloping this area, but yet nothing has occurred. Mr. Horton mentions that he has a plan and he submitted it, and we had a discussion last week, and he had these discussions. But for 2 years, I've been in this office, and this is the first I've heard of it. So I would thought that it would have been brought to me to at least look at and have some input or at least knowledge of. So that is a little bit concerning. Also, the fact is that it was mentioned in our conversations that didn't realize this property was for sale, or someone would have bought it, and the applicant is saying they've been attempting to sell it for many, many years. So there's been some miscommunications back and forth with my office regarding this area. And I find it somewhat ironic that people are talking about having to look at a boat storage when you have to look at a flea market that is 10 times worse than what this would propose. So all of those things cause me some concern and issues. And I think coupled with the fact that, if I understand it, a proposal was just delivered to community development today. Is that correct, John? For this area? Okay. Which I believe is maybe a part of what Mr. Horton presented to us, and I have not had time to look at that or review it. And the fact that I have begun discussions regarding making this a sewer district, so sewer can in fact really be there. The capacity is there to go to Paulding County, but the connectivity, as I understand it, is not. I would prefer, Mr. Chairman, to hold this for 30 days so I can take a look at that, if that's all right with you, sir.
It's fine with me. It's the pleasure of the board. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Burrow. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0 to hold for 30 days. Thank you. That takes us to Z88.
Rezoning case Z88, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Adoden request a rezoning from R20 and R30 to R20 for the purpose of a residential subdivision, land lots 230 and 289 of the 19th district. The property is located on the west side of Corner Road, south of Hayden Farms Drive. The applicant is present. Earlier, there are 8 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Lark, and Huff in Valley, and I represent Mr. and Mrs. Charles Adedine concerning this application for rezoning. Of course, we'll be available to respond to any questions at the appropriate time. 2 weeks ago, the Planning Commission heard this application and based upon staff's recommendation of approval, also unanimously recommended approval, gave us some instructions about certain things to do with respect to the stipulations, which I will cover. What you're looking at on your monitors, this is an assemblage of 2 tracts consisting of 7.275 acres of properties located, as you can see, on the west side of Corner Road, just south of Hayden Farms Drive. It is directly east and contiguous to Echo Mills subdivision. And those of you familiar with West Cobb know that Echo Mills subdivision was developed in the early 2000s. In fact, the property that constituted the entirety of Echo Mill, as well as all of the property that is west or across Corner Road from our property, was owned by the Cantrell family. I've spoken to representatives of the family, which of course they don't know Echo Mill anymore, but they do own substantive tracts on the western side of Corner Road, and they are in support of this zoning. If you look at your future land use map, you can see this property is in an area, VLDR, that's very low density residential. That allows from 0 to 2 units per acre. Whereas if you look at Echo Mill subdivision plats, you have a blended density there of 2.25 units per acre. And now that may have gone into place prior to the most recent amendment to the future land use map, but in any event, it now exceeds what is recommended for that area under VLDR. Also, lot sizes in Echo Mill are as small as 11,360 square feet, admittedly some of which much larger than that. But Echo Mill is what's called a PRD, a planned residential development. We don't have that anymore. We don't have a PUD or planned unit development, so you can see its classification is outdated, but what's on the ground there is significantly more dense than anything out there in that part of the county, whereas the 10 lots we propose for our site weigh in at a density of 1.37 units per acre. This is an interesting application. It began back at the first of the year. In April, you heard this as a 3-lot or 3-home family compound, and then the family was able to purchase the additional acreage to the north. So this blossomed into not only a family compound, but 7 additional custom, quality-built, single-family detached residences, ranging in price from $650,000 to $800,000 and greater, again at a density that comports with the future land use map and the other densities in this area at 1.37. It's really kind of an interesting part of Cobb County. If you looked at an overall picture in relation to this property, this property is framed by Echo Mill, which is PRD, and Amberton subdivision, which is also PRD and is on Lost Mountain Road. Well, this property is in between and with other R20 and R30 zone properties. And of course, what we're asking for is R20 at a 1.37, which we think is entirely appropriate. Deviates from what was done in the early 2000s, but is certainly consistent with what your staff and then your policy, which is embodied in the future land use map, expects for this area. Your staff has recommended approval, as has the Planning Commission. We've spoken with area residents, including those contiguous and adjacent property owners and those within Echo Mill. Also, we're required to send out letters within 1,000 feet. We sent out over 200 letters on this, so you can see, and the preponderance of those were in Echo Mill. A lot of rooftops in this area. Along Corner Road, less so, but it's being developed apace at a density that comports with what your policy embodied in the future land use map states. I handed out to you, these are architectural renderings and elevations of what the homes will look like. As you can see, they're traditional 4-sided architecture, composition of brick, stacked stone, shake, cedar shake, hardy shake. Very good looking homes. And what we've done is we resubmitted those with a revised stipulation letter of October 11th. The reason for the revision to the stipulation letter was to take into consideration those additional comments generated by the Planning Commission relative to some of the people that spoke in opposition or spoke in interest to this. What we propose is the construction on our site plan, and what you're going to be seeing on your boards is what we call a lot fit plan. We've got a site plan that was filed with it, but a lot fit plan showing the actual positioning of the homes on the lots. These are all single-family detached homes ranging in square footage from 3,500 to 4,800 square feet and above. And of course, I've mentioned the price point, 650 to 800 and greater. We'll be creating a mandatory homeowners association with covenants, conditions, and restrictions that contain strict architectural controls to make certain that the architecture is in compliance with what you see. One thing that's not in the STIP letter, and it's interesting, there's a lady named Sherry George who lives in East Cobb, but she is the facilitator for the Georgia Native Plant Rescue. And this is one of the few times that it has escaped me on a piece of undeveloped property, but I got an email from her earlier, late last week, and I told her that we would agree to the GNP plant rescue for this. It's not in my written stipulations, but if the clerk will include that, so that prior to development, we'll agree to the Georgia Native Plant Rescue for this property and consistent with Ms. George's request. The subdivision entrance signage on this is going to be on Corner Road, ground-based monument-style signage, incorporating the landscape plan. It will be, of course, landscaped, irrigated, and lighted as appropriate. Also along the frontage of Corner Road, which is, if you're looking, is to the south, or excuse me, the bottom of the screen here, there'll be decorative faux wrought iron fencing with attendant landscaping and masonry columns just along the frontage. I think one of the site plans, or maybe several of them, showed fencing around the perimeter of the property. There's not plans for that type of fencing. This will be a gated community built to the county's design and detail specs in terms of having sufficient space to turn around. The streets will be private, but they're built to the county's design and detail specifications as well. We'll be submitting a deed, a voluntary donation and conveyance of right-of-way so the county can achieve 40 feet from the center line of Corner Road. And we've agreed to install a sidewalk, curb, and gutter, but the county's not sure they want it because it's really not prevalent in this part of the county. So we'll either do a deed or pay money in lieu thereof, or we'll do the sidewalk, curb, and gutter. But rest assured that all the streets will have sidewalk down at least one side and curb and gutter on both sides of those streets. And again, I can't emphasize enough, built to the county's specifications. Corner Road, if you've been out there, it's kind of a straight shot. So we have 390 feet of sight distance going in both directions. We've got mail kiosks that'll be built within the subdivisions in accordance with USPS regulations. Again, this is and will be a gated community. And I talked, as I mentioned, with the Cantrell family, particularly Mr. Cantrell, who lives across Corner Road from this, and he was happy with the revised site plan that you're seeing and happy that it was going to be gated because as we originally had it, it was teed up with his entrance, and he was concerned that people might confuse the entrances of the two, although he lives in a single-family house on a huge piece of property. We've agreed to all the stormwater management recommendations contained in the zoning analysis. Mr. Braden thinks that there's a regional detention component in Echo Mill subdivision, so that may in fact play into the manner in which we handle stormwater. That'll be determined during plan review, but there is, in fact, from the detention pond, we show an existing easement to the infrastructure that exists within Echo Mill in terms of stormwater management. That exists now, so that will not have to be an easement negotiated. Now, the Planning Commission added several things, and that's the reason for this was precipitated by those that were here with expressed an interest, and that is the creation and acknowledgement of a 35-foot construction buffer around the perimeter of the property during the construction and build-out of the subject property, number one. Number two, the construction and erection of a fence around the perimeter of the detention pond, subject to a review and approval by the county's arborist and stormwater management. And the fence, as I've just mentioned, will be landscaped in accordance with the county's arborist as well. We'll comply with all the water system recommendations. We've got construction hours articulated in the letter, the usual district commissioner ability to make minor modifications. So in wrapping up, I know the time is out, but in wrapping up, just as its three-lot predecessor, this constitutes an extremely low-density residential development with some of the higher-end homes in this part of the county. It's consistent with the dictates of the future land use map, the comprehensive land use plan, your staff's recommendation, your planning commission's recommendation. And for all these reasons, we do respectfully request that this application be approved, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Weatherford.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
Thank you, Garvis. Opposition, please.
Good morning, Board of Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Rovich, and I live at 5290 Beacon Cove Court. My home is one of the 13 homes in the Echo Mill subdivision that border this proposed rezoning application. I am here on behalf of over 260 Echo Mill residents and from the surrounding area who have signed a petition opposing this rezoning. Speaking for the 13 homes in Echo Mill that border this rezoning application, we are not opposed to the development of this property and respect the developer's right to develop the property. However, we feel it should be developed in a way that does not negatively affect our properties. The site plan indicates that there are no buffers on this site. This is not in accordance with the Georgia Tree Ordinance legislative findings or the Georgia Stormwater Manual's best site design practices. Both these documents show that natural buffers increase property values and help manage runoff. Leaving a natural buffer could potentially raise the value of the developer's property while protecting the value of ours. While the Planning Commission stipulated that there be a 35 feet undisturbed construction buffer, and the developer's attorney has indicated this in his latest stipulation letter dated October 11th, they have a 20 feet stormwater easement on the site plan that runs along the Echo Mill properties. According to Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management, this 20 feet would contain open swales and or a pipe. There is also an area on the site plan for a pond that starts about 10 feet from the Echo Mill properties. We have two questions. How can the developer follow the 35 feet undisturbed construction buffer with the current site plan? And is this the most efficient and best plan for this pond location? So I will turn it over to Scarlett Riley, my neighbor. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Scarlett Riley, and I live at 5292 Beacon Cove Court. And my home is also one of the 13 that border this property. We have some other concerns with the site plan. We are concerned with the pond being so close to Echo Mill properties. As it's shown on the site plan, there are 3 homes in Echo Mill that would border this pond. When researching the effects of these dry ponds on home values, we found that these homes are typically less desirable and they are harder to sell. So when building a new neighborhood, if you're buying in, you have the option to negotiate into your price because you are buying next to one of these ponds. We don't have that option. We already live here. So we are concerned how this pond could affect our property values. There are some who will buy these ponds because of the privacy, because no one will build there. But we found that there are many others who will just walk away, will not even look at homes because they are next to a pond. In addition to affecting the value of our homes, we are concerned about the safety and the maintenance issues associated with the pond. For safety, for those of you who don't know, Echo Mill is a neighborhood full of young families with lots of kids. And even if this pond is fenced in, it's a big open area. It's really inviting for young kids. It also acts as a natural bicycle ramp. We have talked to some who have seen kids riding their bikes on these. So when you get water in these ponds, even though it is a dry pond, when water goes in there, it'll be in there 24 to 48 hours or so until it drains out. It could be a very dangerous situation. We're also concerned about the maintenance of the ponds. First question, it's a small neighborhood. So what happens once this development starts if the developer goes under? What happens if the HOA does not have the funds to maintain the pond? And the reason we're so concerned about the pond maintenance is that 2/3 of the stormwater runoff from this property runs into Echo Mill properties. So how will our properties be affected if this pond is not maintained? So we reached out to a homeowner who lives next to a dry pond, developers, and also a civil engineer, and they all expressed concerns over the maintenance of these ponds. The civil engineer pulled up aerial photos of where these ponds are located. And in some instances, you could see the pond, it's dry, it looked as it should look. In other instances, the ponds were not maintained and you could not even tell that there's a pond there. And I have a couple photos to show you. These were taken by the homeowner who lives next to the dry pond. And as you can see, you can't even tell that it's a pond. It's not being maintained. And our question is, what do we do when all this water is running off and this pond hasn't been maintained? So there are issues with the maintenance of these ponds. Even if it doesn't get to this condition, if the grass isn't cut regularly, then there can be mosquitoes, there can be snakes, and then it becomes a nuisance for us who have to live next to this. How are we going to enjoy our yards when we've got mosquitoes and other things flying around that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this pond? Thank you. We are also concerned that, I'm sorry, could you put the site view back up? That clearing up to the property lines could negatively affect the root structures of the trees on Echo Mill properties. As you can see from the site plan, there's that 20-foot stormwater easement we were talking about, and also the pond. And to put that in, you would obviously have to take down trees. And there are significant hardwoods, large pine trees on Echo Mill properties very close to the property lines. And we're concerned that these root structures could be affected. So for those homeowners who do have this issue, we would like to be notified when the county arborist walks the property. Another concern we have is that the homes are not consistent with the area. The developer is proposing homes starting at 3,500 square feet with a price point of $620,000 to $780,000. Echo Mill homes range from about 2,700 to 3,000 feet above ground with an average price point of $323,000. In the nearby neighborhoods of Stone Mill Creek and Kyle Farm, the starting price point is about $400,000. We feel that these homes need to look and feel consistent with Corner Road. There is also another issue is with the sewer. There is no sewer on site, and the staff comments on the rezoning application indicate that Beacon Cove Court is the nearest sewer and that all easement acquisitions are the responsibility of the developer. The residents of Beacon Cove Court are not willing to give the developer a sewer easement. So today we are asking that you not approve this rezoning application. The site plan does not meet the stipulations set forth by the Planning Commission and the developer's attorney stipulation letter that there be a 35-foot undisturbed construction buffer. We want to see a site plan that reflects this 35-foot buffer. We are also asking that if you look on the site plan where the pond is and where the stormwater easement is, he's being required by stormwater to tie into the stormwater easement that runs between 5290 and 5292 Beacon Cove Court. In the process of tying in to that pipe, the head wall is actually on my property. They would have to come in, and my understanding from Dave Braden is extend that pipe into their property. And so we're asking that our home, our backyard, be left in as good or better condition it was before the developer comes in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Are there any other speakers wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, public hearing is closed. Commissioner Rutherford?
Thank you. Mr. Braden, I have a few questions for you, sir, if you could come before.
Yes, sir. Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management Division again.
Can you enlighten us regarding assume a gated community means that not only are the roads private, so is the retention pond, and what that entails and the ramifications of that?
That is
sir?
correct. For a gated community, or whether it's not gated but still private roads, but gated requires private streets in it, then the stormwater infrastructure would be required to be private as well and be maintained by the HOA.
Do we have any provisions to monitor that or anything once it's private, or, I mean, we have no control?
There are tens of thousands of ponds in the county, so we do not have the staff to on a proactive basis go out and do inspections or monitor. But anytime there's a complaint or an issue, we have environmental compliance that would come out and take a look and address any issues that would.
And I know that in the past, private roads that we take in that are private that may at one time come into the county, we put performance bonds and things. Do we have provisions to do anything that for a retention pond or retention?
I believe in the past, I know when Rob was here, there have been a few cases where those have been set up. I can't remember one recently, but I know that maybe John will remember that we have done that in the past, yeah.
And in your professional opinion, the stormwater easement that is needed for this property, is there a way to keep that outside a certain distance from the property lines of Echo Mill?
You're referring to the drainage easement that we're requiring
Yes.
along the property line? And the reason for that is the site drains basically to the west. So if you don't have something to catch that water, then it's going to run right into those neighbors' backyards. So we have to be able to get that water to the pond. And in reference to the pond location, it is the point that the pond would have to be located. You can't relocate it in the site because it needs to be at the lowest point to catch all the water from the site. So the good thing is we have a drainage easement to release it to, but it does fix the location that it needs to be. That drainage easement does not necessarily have to be right on the property line. In other words, that 20 feet doesn't have to be the first 20 feet. So and again, normally we don't, or most cases we don't buffer or do landscape buffers between residential developments, particularly when the lots are even bigger than the existing lots. But if that is what decided that there needs to be a landscape buffer, then that drainage easement can be moved inside whatever the width of that landscape buffer is. It just needs to be understood that if you have a 20-foot landscape buffer and a 20-foot drainage easement, that puts the actual building line at 40 feet, not 35 feet. So I think in all cases that would still be workable, except maybe the one lot that is on the corner there where the house is skewed. And that might be handled with maybe a variance on the front setback since it's on that cul-de-sac to be able to allow that house to slide forward a little bit and still keep that 20 and 20. So it is possible to have the drainage easement and a landscape buffer. It's just not typical.
So what I'm gathering is the retention pond is where it has to be.
That's
and
correct.
The drainage easements are somewhat flexible to get to the retention pond.
Right. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me address one question because I believe it was mentioned about the regional facility within Echo Mill. Echo Mill does have a regional facility that provides for the stormwater management for their development. Unfortunately, this part of Echo Mill that this site discharges through actually drains below that facility. So it would, if nothing's done on this side, it would basically be undetained through the system. So.
And when we do connectivity to other drainage easements, such as through Echo Mill, we do return the property to where it was before, do we not?
That's correct. We also make sure that the existing capacity of that system through Echo Mill is enough to handle the site discharge. So if there was an undersized pipe, then we would make them over-detain to account for that. But that's correct. Tying into this system, I think the head wall is about 5 feet when we looked at it? It's about 5 or 6 feet. The drainage easement goes all the way to the property line, but the head wall is about 5 feet in. So we don't want them to release this pond into an open ditch and then have to get it back into a head wall on the Riley's development. So they would extend that pipe, get rid of the head wall, and instead of having a ditch, they'll just have a landscape or grass.
So the head wall will
they would
be
have to
gone
restore
and
that.
pipe.
They have to restore that to grass and landscaped. the way they would desire it.
That pipe that goes through her yard and connects to the system in the street, is that relatively new? And
That was in place when Echo Mill was built. There's actually a head wall in the Rileys, and then there's actually a pedestal inlet on the adjacent lot that creates a Y. So there's plenty of capacity there.
Okay.
But it was built when the subdivision was put in place. That's correct.
when was it built, you know?
Boy, I'm not sure. It was before I came here, so it had to be 15 years ago.
Okay,
So-
well, we might, depending on,
Excuse me. Sir?
2000.
Nothing.
So it's a-
I forgot I wasn't chairman right now.
GIS says 2000, so right, the year before I came on board with the
Okay.
county. So
so depending on where you go with this, would it be wise to camera that line to see if it needed to be sleeved before as part of the process, up to the,
their downstream analysis will do, in plan review,
Okay.
we require them to look at the downstream
Thank you.
capacity and the.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, you had a question, I guess?
I do. It seems awful big, this pond.
That is not the pond size.
That's a
And
pond
and
location.
actually, normally the pond lots are way too small for the amount of ponds that we usually.
Right,
and
so, well, the reason
I believe that there's plenty of room on this lot to put the pond and maybe even have a landscape buffer as well as.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the pond could be closer to, the street.
Yeah, that's just the required pond lot for the pond, but the pond does not extend to the outside boundaries of.
Right,
of that,
because it
right?
seems like there could be a lot of, landscaping up against, the neighbors' lots with the pond being closer to the street, and then any piping that goes to the drainage easement could be, underground.
Like I said, until we get to plan review, we won't see the actual pond design and how much volume it needs to have in it. But in my experience, that pond lot is plenty big, usually, and larger than we most see on a 10-lot development. So I believe they've got some flexibility in how to position it on the lot, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And in plan review, we would make sure that it's positioned as far as we can get it away from Echo Mill.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, Commissioner.
Sorry, Dave. There was a comment shared around concern around child access to the detention pond. Is there a county standard for how high the fence has to be around?
Has to be a
detention pond?
6-foot-high fence. Yeah.
Okay.
4 foot does not, like, higher than you would have around a pool. So,
Okay.
yeah, it has to be 6 feet.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Weatherford?
Yes, either John or Dana, I have a question about buffering and residential, maybe Dana can answer it. Or is there a requirement to buffer anything from residential to residential?
For this zoning district, there's not a requirement except for the 35-foot construction buffer.
And explain what a construction buffer is, please.
During the development of the property, when they're under their land disturbance permit, they can't disturb within 35 feet of the exterior property line. But that buffer goes away once the COs are issued for the house.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready. All right, thank you. I've met with the homeowners and discussed this particular development, and it's, again, a little more complicated than it looks on the surface. What makes me feel much better is Commissioner Ott's question about the pond is a lot smaller, or will be a lot smaller even than what it shows. A lot is there. Also discussing with stormwater, I think we're able to provide within a certain buffer limit drainage to connect to that without disturbing that. So I'd like to make a motion with the following stipulations to approve Z88, subject to Sam Larkin, Huff, and Bailey's 1011 stipulation letter, with the addition that there be.
Hang on. Sorry. You guys got a complete zone to what?
Zone it to R20,
There you
from
go.
R20 to R30.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
What are we doing? Oh, God. I'm sorry. Yeah. With the addition stipulation, along with the 35 undisturbed conservation buffer, I would like to add that there be a 20-foot undisturbed buffer bordering Echo Mill and a minimum at least around the detention pond, retention pond. as well, that there be no clear cutting and that a tree save approved by the county arborist, and that they would actually contact the HOA at Echo Mill to let them walk through and look at that. That there be significant landscape screening around the pond, meeting county codes, and certainly a 6-foot high fence. That Georgia natural plants be added as per Mr. Sam's compliance. And then I would like ComDef to work with some type of language that would indicate a performance bond to maintain this particular retention pond through the HOA in case there's any failure there in the future.
All the staff's comments.
All staff comments, otherwise not in conflict. Sorry, sir.
I'll second. Second by Commissioner. Just a minute. Second by Commissioner. You have a comment, sir.
Yes, I just want to comment, normally what we see on infill, which I'm going to call this infill because it's surrounded, is we see the proposed development being the multiple lots up against the few lots. This is one of the rare times where there are less lots proposed up against the existing lots than the other way around. So I would just, you talk about 13 lots bordering this, and there's only 5 lots in the proposed development. That is very rare that we see it that way. And I think with the size of the pond being able to be a lot smaller than the existing lot, there's opportunity for a significant landscaping so that folks in your neighborhood, you're not even going to see it. And with the 6-foot fence, the kids aren't going to be able to get in there, and with not being able to see it, I don't think it's going to become a distraction. So,
thank you, Commissioner Burrow.
I think when you said 35-foot conservation buffer,
No.
you meant construction.
I meant construction, certainly.
Okay. And do you want to have approval of the final site plan and landscape plan?
I do, and thank you for that comment. The other thing is, when I discussed with stormwater, I want the stormwater easement to be outside that 20-foot buffer. And I believe we've worked that out so that can be, but I'd like to make that a part of my notes as well, that the 20-foot easement be outside the 20-foot undisturbed buffer.
Mr. Wright, you're good with it. Thank you. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, folks. That takes us to lot 24, which is pulled from consent due to opposition.
Okay, LEP 24, Deborah S. McGuire requests a land use permit for the purpose of poultry, which are 4 hens, on less than 2 acres in land lots 1191 and 1258 of the 16th district. The property is located on the south side of Lakeshore Drive, west of Blackland Drive. The applicant is present. Earlier, there was 1 person here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in. Is the opposition here for lot 24? Let the record show they have left.
Thank you. Sir?
Good morning. My name is Jim McGuire, and my wife is Debbie McGuire. And we are here to ask the board to consider a chicken coop housing 4 female chickens on less than 2 acres. We own a lot. The lot in question is 3725 Lakeshore Drive. It's an empty lot. We've owned it since 1981. We also own the adjacent property at 3745 Lakeshore Drive, and we've owned that since 1979, living there since 1980. Now, the lot at 3725 has been used as a garden lot, and it was owned by the developer, and he used it as a garden lot before we acquired it. But we have lived at 3745 Lakeshore Drive for over 36 years. Our lot is very secluded. It's very wooded. Together, the 2 lots, 3725 and 3745, comprise approximately a little over 1.3 acres. We have always been and will continue to be very concerned about the safety, health, and welfare of our neighborhood. We fully intend to abide by the standards set by the zoning department and the ordinances passed by this commission. The chicken coop will not be visible from the street. Also, our neighbor Leslie Salem, who's graciously appeared with us, will participate. She's also an owner. She's not an adjacent owner, but she lives on Old Stone Mill, which is north of this lot. And she said that she will help us maintain the chickens on the property, the 4 chickens. The coop will measure approximately 6 by 8 feet. And again, it will house 4 female chickens. The coop will be enclosed by a runner using hardware cloth, which will also be buried at least 1 foot below the ground to ensure that predators cannot dig under it and to keep snakes away. And we understand that there's many predators, especially in a heavily wooded lot. There's coyotes in the area, there's hawks, there's owls. So you've got to do everything you can in building this coop to ensure that the chickens remain safe. And it also helps with just the safety of the area in general. And we plan to secure the coop as well as we can. It will also use netting on the top of the coop, and we'll use very sturdy screws and locks. We're going to use a service to install this coop, a professional service. We have a lot of support for this land use in question, and I know that the board earlier passed these ordinances almost unanimously for the use of a chicken coop on less than 2 acres. And but we do have a lot of support. We put a newsletter out to the entire neighborhood, and we did not receive or hear any opposition at all to the coop from the neighbors that lived in Blackland. It's like a Blackland Ridge subdivision is the name of the subdivision. We did personally receive a few emails in support once we sent out this global email to all the residents in the subdivision. We also have numerous signatures, 17, and we had 3 members of our neighborhood submit letters of support to Mr. Peterson. I think there was a concern with respect to property values and the coop location itself. With regard to that, I don't feel like that is an issue. The coop's planned location will be surrounded by woods to the south and north, and our home to the west, and by trees planted recently to the east. This will be almost invisible to our neighbors and the surrounding area. Additionally, as stated in my email to Kim Wakefield, zoning analyst with the county, the approximate distances between the edge of the coop in relation to the property lines at 3725 Lakeshore Drive are as follows. From the east property line along the 4 Lakeshore Drive property, which is located to the east, the coop will be at least 30 feet from that property line, and we have that owner's consent, by the way. From the west property line, which is adjacent to our home at 3745 Lakeshore Drive, the coop will be located at least 50 feet from that property line. From the north property line adjacent to Lakeshore Drive, which is the street which would allow access to the homes along that street, it will not be visible but from the street and will be located at least 60 feet from the curb line of that street. And then finally, from our south property line, now that's adjacent to another subdivision called River Mill, which is actually located at an elevation a lot higher up as well. The coop on that, and there is a floodplain in the area that is along an old creek bed, and there's a little creek that runs, and I think it's serviced by Cobb County for drainage and for other purposes, which is along the southeast property line of 3725 and all of the homes along Lakeshore Drive there. So the coop in that case will be located over 100 feet. Actually, I measured it from the rear property line. It's going to be 140 feet from the rear property line. And from the neighbor's subdivision, actual home in River Mill, he has a buffer along his north property line, probably for the distance from his home, from his house to the coop would probably be well over 250 feet from the coop. We did get all of the adjacent owners except for the pairs, which are located in River Mill, to consent. I did send a letter to the pairs letting them know before. That has nothing to do with the notification letter that we sent to all of the adjacent owners. I sent them a separate letter, but I did not receive any response from the pairs, nor are we aware of any opposition. I'd like to go ahead, if possible, and just give you an idea of what this would actually look like from an aerial view, as far as, so you can get an idea of what the area looks like. Okay, the coop, it's hard to tell, but there's a little red area. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry, where it says coop. So, oh, okay. All right. Thank you. That's okay. Area right there, that's where the coop's going to be, right there. And you can see it's surrounded completely by trees. And there's the adjacent owner to the east. She's consented. There's our house to the west at 3745 Lakeshore Drive. Now, River Mill, you can't see because it's so far back, I couldn't fit it into the aerial view. Lakeshore Drive is here. Again, the coop is going to be surrounded completely by trees. We do, I can show you another view of what this looks like that we use. You can see how we use the property now as a garden lot. And as you can see, the coop is probably going to be on the other area right over here, probably in the back toward those trees. We're going to place the coop. We want to make sure it's at least 30 feet from the east property line, so that we, even though we have a consent from the owner of 4 Lakeshore Drive, we want to make sure that we keep it in the most distance that we can from her lot. But we're using it as a garden now. We've used that since 1981 as a garden, and we just want to have a little chicken coop to house 4 chickens. Also, I might add, with regard to the location being in a plotted subdivision, I think that the zoning analyst mentioned that, and I'm not sure, I think they had some reservations about it being a plotted subdivision. The ordinance, the reason the ordinance was passed was to allow chickens on less than 2 acres. I would say that probably 90% of the land less than 2 acres in Cobb County, I don't have any statistics to back me up, I'm just thinking that probably 90% of those lots are probably in plotted subdivisions. If they're less than 2 acres, there's a good chance. I have a friend in Sandy Springs who lives in an upscale neighborhood who has raised chickens for over a year. So I don't think that the question with respect to property values is really a valid issue. I might also add there's many other cities that surround us that allow chickens on less than 2 acres. And they don't have any ordinance at all with respect to this issue. They are as follows.
We appreciate what other cities do, but as you can tell, your time is expired. So
all right.
If you would and I believe the opposition's left, so if you would, I'll turn it over to the commissioner and let him lead our conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, man. Just for the record, it's the opposition that stood up initially for Z, or for LUP 724, are they gone? Thank you. The public hearing is closed. Commissioner Ott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave, Braden, I got a quick question. Could we get the GIS with the floodplain on it back up there? Is that the old map? All right, let's see the new one. Because they wouldn't be able to build on the floodplain if that was the new lines, right, or the existing lines? Because their survey shows a
I
different.
believe that this is the old flood mapping. I've got a GIS exhibit that should show the current. Yeah, because this is Zone A. It's not a detailed study stream, but
So the
I think we've updated.
The blue is Zone A, because they could not be able to build in Zone A, right?
No.
Right.
Well, I don't, you can have livestock in a floodplain, but
But
as
can
a
they put a
general rule,
coop?
I recommended that they have the chicken coop outside the floodplain, and it's well outside the floodplain based on our mapping. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion, please. All right, I make a motion to approve LUP 24 to allow a maximum of 4 hens with no roosters. The variances is listed in the zoning comments, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Also, what I'd like to add, based on the survey that was submitted, it appears they have about 221 feet front to back on the east side and about 267 feet on the west side. So I'm going to add in, consistent with the requirements of the floodplain, you can't build a chicken coop in the floodplain, but that the chicken coop be no less than 100 feet from the back property line and no less than 100 feet from the front curb line, as long as that doesn't put it in the floodplain. If it puts in the floodplain, then it can be less than the 100 feet on the front. So that's just because the one letter of opposition that I got early this morning, and I'm guessing that it was the lady who was here, lives on Stone Mill, which is just kind of off the map on the front there. So, so John, 100 feet front and back, unless that puts it in the floodplain, and then just move it forward to get it out of the floodplain. And that would be my motion.
Okay, you didn't indicate for how long?
24 months.
24, you realize planning commission was 12 months, right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
So 24 is your motion? Is there a second? Second. A second by Commissioner Cupid. Just for the record, I didn't support it when we passed the ordinance. I don't support it now, having chickens on less than 2 acres, so that's why I'm going to be in opposition. Call the question. Motion carries 3-2. Commissioner Burrow and Lee in opposition. That takes us to AUP 27.
Yes, sir. LEP 27, Christina Disser, requests a land use permit for the purpose of poultry on less than 2 acres in land lots at 620 and 670 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Mitchell Road, southwest of Postal Trick Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 27?
I'm here.
You're here. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good morning.
Morning.
Do I need to just kind of go over what I went over in the
Yeah,
last one?
so first of all, your name.
Okay.
Second of all, similar to what the gentleman, similar.
Yes.
You don't have to get as extensive, but similar to what the gentleman just
No
did.
need, no need. My name's Christina Disser. I reside at 2410 Mitchell Road, and I currently have a chicken coop on site. When it was originally, we got our chickens a year ago, June. I was unaware of needing a permit. I grew up in a small town and had sheep and chickens and lived on an acre in a town and didn't know. So anyway, I got a notice of violation, and so then I applied for the permit. And I stated my case in the Planning Commission, and they approved it. But it is located within the as you see on the plan, the survey I had done, it does show it exactly where it's located. I had a whole survey done to include it. We took a previous playground set that my husband had built, and we converted it to our coop. It's all enclosed, very similar as the gentleman just said. It is hardware cloth. It's not chicken wire, because that is, predators can chew through that, raccoons and that, so it is buried 6 inches down, so nothing can tunnel under it. They are enclosed every night. I also, in their ranging area, I have netting over the entire top to prevent any aerial predators and that kind of thing. Main reason we have our chickens is for eggs. We lead a pretty healthy lifestyle. It's also a great educational experience for my children. I homeschool our 3 children, and it's been a great way of doing things, and I think it's the way to go as far as showing that you can use animals for their food and still provide a quality life for them as well. Anyway, I did have one opposing neighbor, and he came forward last time at the Planning Commission and discussed his points, and we met afterwards, and he is no longer in opposition, said he wasn't going to be appealing it, would not be attending today, and it's been worked out. He had never even spoken to me prior to then, so I didn't know any of his concerns. So we did work that out, and he's all good with it.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Just for the record, is anyone here in opposition to LUP 27? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. Well, I apologize, but I have been out of town for a couple of weeks and had not heard from you or the opposition that was here at the Planning Commission. I did watch the Planning Commission tape, and I normally do site visits for all of my zonings, and because I've been out of town, I did not have the opportunity to do that. And with the opposition for an adjoining neighbor, when I watched the tape, some things were brought up that I really like the time to do a site visit and address. I do still have a problem that, or I do feel that poultry in a platted subdivision and less than half an acre with opposition from adjoining neighbors is not appropriate. And, there's a lot of talk about property values and the impact of property values. But neighbors have property rights too. And although you should be able to do what you want within reason on your property, your adjoining neighbors have a say in a subdivision as well. So I do have a few questions for you, Ms. Strisser, if you'd come back up. How long have you lived at this address?
We've lived there, it was 12 years in August.
Okay, and I know the notice of violation was in the end of March.
Yes.
But when did you get, you said June the previous year, or
Yes.
when did you get the?
Yes,
food?
we got the chickens in June of 2015.
Okay. And the code enforcement, the violation was a result of someone
It was an
complaining?
anonymous
Complaint,
yes. And that, it's no longer anonymous. It was the neighbor who is directly behind me. I have 5 neighbors. Everyone else was in agreement and signed off. He was the only one in opposition.
Okay. And I know he presented some concerns in a book at the Planning Commission, which I just got a copy of as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have not spoken to him, but I know that Planning Commissioner Galt did ask y'all to communicate and discuss.
We did, yes.
So, I was just curious if it was a result of a complaint in the end of March, why is it just now coming to apply for a LUP?
I tried to apply earlier, that was my plan, but when I went to use a survey, I could not locate one on file anywhere. Even, I came down here to the plat books and that kind of thing, and even those who helped me thought it was strange that there wasn't one. So I then had to order and have a survey performed.
Okay.
I also had to, save up money to be able to afford to do the survey as well. So I did it as quickly as possible, and that's why it wasn't immediately the next month.
Okay.
I did follow up with the officer and emailed as well as called to keep them posted as far as my progress goes, and that was and the reason it was taking me a little bit longer.
Okay. And I know this doesn't relate to this zoning, but I know at the Planning Commission hearing, Mr. Terry asked you if you had any other animals.
Mm-hmm.
And he told you that you need to get with Mr. Peterson to go before the BZA for the
Correct.
ducks that you have
Yes,
on your
that I was told that they believe I need to do a variance, and I have tried to research this, and I couldn't find any information as far as my ducks. And we do have 4 ducks, and they are used for their eggs as well.
Okay. Well, I'd like to hold this just to be able to do a site visit and talk to your neighbors.
Okay.
Are you agreeable to that, to hold it for 30 days?
Of course.
Okay. That would be my motion.
I'll second. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, ma'am.
So will I get an update to know what's going on?
Her office
Yeah,
will contact you.
I'll meet with you either afterwards or call you.
Okay.
My assistant's right here in the front.
Okay. I have a flight to catch at 3 o'clock, so
Okay.
if you don't mind, I'll email you.
Fine.
Or I'll make sure you have my contact info.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Take care. Have a safe journey. That takes us to other business items. It appears we have none, right?
We are complete.
Wow. All right, great job, commissioners. Good job, community, whatever's left. We are adjourned.
Sure.